Hey everyone, welcome to Do My Life, and this is Gilsar Vergara. You can call me Gil. Today we have an exciting guest, Mr. Jonathan Mercado, owner of the Conscious Life Experience. If you want to work with him, reach out to him. This is his website, his Instagram, as well as his LinkedIn profile, and they will be in the description area as well. He is from New York City, an artist and a consultant. He's been working on his business for about 5 years now, and he's a nomadic traveler, so I'm definitely gonna have fun picking his brain. So what he offers is professional services, coaching, and e-commerce. And if you want to be a guest on our next podcast, whether you're an entrepreneur, interesting person, promote your business, or whatever, click the link down below or this right here, and it'll take you to my Calendly. Talking about the Conscious Life Experience, I know you've been working on it for 5 years. How has it been? Like, what was the catalyst of making it happen, and then leading into what it is now?
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you the full backstory. So,
Okay, great.
you're seeing me now. I'm 31, entrepreneur from New York City. I've been working on my personal brand and been a full-time entrepreneur for already 5 years. And give you that backstory before that. So when I was 22, I started in corporate, which I guess is a similar path that most people take in America, at least. Finished high school, went to college, started corporate, and did a kind of like a standard like 9 to 5, 9 to 6. And I was in banking, finance, that type of world. New York City, very fast-paced life. Again, great starting position, a great position to be in at any point. You know, if you want that, if that's what you're looking for, right? If you're looking for good pay, security, all of that, super good position. But that's not why we're on this podcast. It's, like when you have that drive, when you have that motivation, you're an entrepreneur, you have dreams, you have goals, that is always what's moving you forward. So although it did take me about 3 to 4 years to make the leap, for me, it's something I knew that I wanted to do when I was in high school. So like when I was in high school, I was always telling my friends, I was like, I'm going to have that business. I'm going to have the island. I want to be on the helicopter. I want to be doing all these crazy things. And to them, right, it was just like, oh, this is fun. This is imagination. To me, it was always real. Fast forward, I go to college, right? I majored in accounting and I was going for that corporate track. But in my mind, like I knew I was going to start a business. So like this is something that was in me already since I was young. And I think it's kind of like a personality thing. You find that in a lot of people. But anyway, I started my business after 3 years. I had that background in accounting, but I was always into personal development. In college, I studied sociology and kept up with those studies, consciousness, personal development. All of that was something I was passionate about. So while I was in corporate trying to find a way out, what I naturally gravitated toward first was life coaching. Life coaching is business coaching that gave me a marketable skill to start with. So that became the core position that allowed me to say, all right, here's the corporate job. I have a skill, a passion that could be going into the market as life coaching. And that will help me bridge the gap between corporate to full-time on my own. And then for a year, I was doing life coaching and also independent sales with Bob Proctor mindset coaching programs. So I was doing freelance. So it was a hybrid of both. I wasn't fully on my own yet, but I was also with a team and I wasn't in the 9 to 5. And I did that for about a year or so. And then the life just said, it's time to do your own thing. And then circumstances happened, 2020, launched my own business. And then COVID happened, which made it a perfect time to just really focus on that. So it was a bit of luck and timing on that. And then, we go from there.
So kind of diving into that, like kind of going back and more into your past, you at a young age had that dream, had that drive already. What did someone inspire you to be that way, or you think you were like, you know what, this is how I am?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, it's how I was. I mean, growing up, I had a beautiful family, community, friends. I had all of that, but everyone was pretty conservative. My parents worked the 9 to 5. My dad was a hard worker. And we had the opportunity to explore in a lot of free time and play. Like I was in sports, I was in creative things, I played music, and that was just, for me, I was always a creative person. So I think that's just an innate.
So that's really interesting. It's very interesting because, I mean, myself, we come from a very entrepreneurial family. So it was kind of like not a destiny for me, but it was an option for me. So it's crazy how your parents were pretty conservative. Did you have any pushback? Like, Jonathan, what are you doing with your life? You got a great job
Oh, of
already. Like,
course.
now, can you give any advice to anyone facing that now, as in like the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
parents, the fam? Yeah, yeah. Go ahead on that one.
Yeah, I tell you what, I mean, it's something that I faced back then, it's something I face now, and it's something that I think you're always going to face until everyone sees like you have $1 million in your bank account. They're not going to believe it because to them that's what's real, right? If you're making the money, then it's real. But there's so much, as you know, there's so much to life and behind the scenes in any profession or any career, 9 to 5 or whatever, that people don't
Yeah.
see, right? It's you as an individual, your mind, your process that goes on. um so like, especially when I first left, I was only, what was it, 25, 26 when I left.
Hmm.
So even my friends in corporate, oh, this sucks, whatever, I want to do my own thing, da, da. I was one of the first people to do it, and still one of the only ones that actually did it.
Right.
But again, that doesn't say much about like other people. That was just me, and I'm following my path. And that's not to say that a corporate path is not right for some people. Some of it is, but eventually, like, I did that. I faced the backlash, and then as time went on, I saw more of my friends leaving the job or leaving to do something else and just saying no. So it's something I think that everyone does at some point in their career, like whether you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, at some point
Right.
you're going to say like, I'm following my path and this just isn't working. For me, that just happened a bit earlier. But yeah, I always got the backlash. Like, what are you doing? Don't worry about it. It's my life. I'll figure it out.
Even, yeah, even I would that does resonate with me because even in my 40s, yeah, my dad has since passed, but even my mom goes, even though we come from like an entrepreneurial family, like, is that the right choice? Because they're more into the 100-year businesses that
Mm,
they're like super like, okay, when everybody consumes rice, so let's just stay in this commodity versus
for
like
sure.
doing a bit more product and service based and stuff like that. Like, well, that's too high risk. What? Definitely, I totally understand. I mean, I think that is something that everyone unfortunately faces when you're going against the grain. Unfortunately.
And it's something I say too, and it's like by almost like by default or by definition, right? If you're an individual following their own path, the opposite balance is the collective. So like, you're going to face resistance and frustration by definition of choosing to be an individual. And I don't think people understand that. Like, they think people are going to support them, and it's not personal, it's just the way it is. And then what happens is you just get better at managing that dynamic.
And yeah, yeah, that would have to say in my 40s, I am starting to see the fruits of that labor now, where people are like, "Oh crap, yeah, okay, I guess you were making sense all those years." So I was like, "Oh, okay, that kind of makes sense." But then, uh, you know, I mean, I don't know about you, but there's a part of me that still seeks for that, even with my family, my community, like that approval, like, okay, yeah, you were onto something very, very good. Going into like personal development, right? So I know that a lot of people go through like they go through like I guess schools, or did you go to the typical to get accredited and things like that when you got into life coaching and things like that?
No, so this was something, I think this was kind of just like my innate personality and passion. Like, I was someone that was always observant and aware, and a lot of my friends and people would just come to me for advice, just like I was that guy that people came to. But then also in college, I studied sociology. So for me, that is kind of what unlocked my mind to start seeing world from outside of myself, from this bigger picture view of like, here's society, here's how things work. I was given kind of like this blueprint of like, this is what a corporate structure looks like, this is how people are structured. So because I was given that knowledge, it kind of unlocked me earlier. And for
Mm.
me, like, I ran with it. That was as much training as I needed to say like, okay, I have the textbook definition, and then from there I just dove into the spiritual books, the philosophy books, and I pieced it all together on my own.
That's great because I think a lot of people would love to hear that you don't have to, you can base life experiences and and serve people in that way rather than or have rather than because like me sometimes I'm sure I'm not the only one. There's super like a lot of people who are skeptical on like, do I got to pay the school like $2,000, $10,000 to be certified, and meanwhile they might have a bit more life experience than the people taking the class itself who need a actual
Yeah.
like like the step by step of how to talk to people and stuff
Hmm.
like that. But it's great that there are people out there like you who people do naturally go to talk to, and it's amazing that you actually transition into an actual product for yourself. And I think there's a lot of value there that people can see if and when they want to get into that lifestyle, because even me, like, that's something I want to get into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and this is the thing too. It's like I say, you're doing it now, right? You're that guy right now. Like, we're on this call. You are that guy. Like, you're already there, even if you don't see it. This is what I say. Even if it's not like your picture perfect, like you're free, full-time, independent. You're living it now, right? You're doing the podcast. You're running your stuff. Like, people don't see those things as steps in the journey. And like for me, like I would say, like I was successful the moment I said I'm going to follow my dreams and my path. I didn't have any product. I didn't have anything. The moment I made that decision, I was successful. This is a life. Right, I'm 30, like I'm going to be doing what I'm doing for the next, hopefully, right, 100 years, right? But I'm successful because I chose that for myself, right? I'm following my own path. People think you need the external, like I need a business, I need a title. It's not about that. It's if you know that you're doing what you want to do for you, then you're successful, at least in my eyes.
No, that's very profound, because I think a lot of people, that statement brings a lot of clarity to some people. Because there brings a lot of clarity to some people. So, what, like, kind of diving into the life coaching, what is one of the most misunderstood things about being a life coach?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And even to tie what you were just saying too. So it's like, I love the industry because it's very individual. It's very broad, and there's something for everyone. It's at the core of it, it's just relationships. Like, I can connect with someone and listen to them, and I can give them advice from a different perspective. Some people may require, like, let's say one person may be a very analytical professional who likes buy the book, buy the paper. They're going to go see someone who got the certifications. Maybe not me, but they'll go see that person. But someone who may be like me, like young, scrappy, and like ambitious with a lot of stuff, like I may resonate with that person. So first thing to know is there's someone for everyone. And that's the beauty about being an individual. Like, whatever you're doing, there's always going to be someone to match yourself with. So you can, once you like kind of like tap into your own individual persona, you can really start to carve your path. And we can talk about this even more if you want, but it's like I started as a life coach, and the Conscious Life experience turned into a brand, which came into an art business, which became into a network. And there's a bunch of businesses. I see it as a tree. It's like I planted that seed, and now there's so many branches that are coming off of that. So when you start, right, wherever you are now, I don't know what you did before, but you're on this podcast now, right? 5-10 years from now, who knows what's going to come out of this, right? Maybe you'll do a podcast, maybe it'll be a business, maybe it'll lead you to something else. Like, you have no idea, but you started.
I think that when I even talk to people that I guess indirectly mentor, a lot of it is just taking action and being able to face that. Okay, I might fail at this, but whatever, it is what it is. And I find that some people, especially as they get older with more obligations, they're less likely to take that leap because of, maybe in their eyes, their perspective, there's so many things holding them back from that, But at the end of the day, sometimes I'm like, at the end of the day, you're going to live with those regrets if you don't do it, because it's not me. It's going to be you who's going to live with those regrets. Right? Yeah.
For sure.
So let's dive into the Conscious Life experience. You talked about like networking and art stuff. Like, what type of art are we producing here?
Yeah. So the Conscious Life experience. So that brand itself is really a reflection of me, and that whole idea behind it was, I'm going to be everything I want to be, and I'm going to experience everything I want to experience in this lifetime. And that's coming from me, right? And that started with the coaching, and then from that, the personal development turned into art, and it was digital art. And as a coach, I was, especially this during COVID, right? Everyone shut down, everyone took a break, and I went to go explore more of my interests because I had that time and luxury. Started to get into photography, started to get into digital art. NFTs came around, started to tie my music back into music production. That came around, and I start to take these random ideas, and then soon they form into a project. I meet and network with more people along the way. I had an amazing co-founder and friend, and we started another business, which was a network for artists and the like. So it's almost like pieces of me are coming into business. So as I see myself and I see digital technology,
right,
we're almost like the modern day, almost like a Leonardo da Vinci. Like, with this technology, I could be everything in one person.
Yes.
Right. I don't have to go all those things. So that this business is a reflection of that. And through that, like I'm doing it myself, and we have a network that's going to help other, we're calling multidisciplinary creators, multidisciplinary, multidimensional, whatever it may be, everyone with all these interests, which everyone has. With digital technology, you can now do that. And we're going to see that over the next 10, 20 years as AI technology becomes more apparent, remote work becomes more apparent. You can do everything. And this is this is the beauty of everyone that feels stuck right now. It's like, you don't have to be full-time. And even in my full-time path, I still had some side jobs. Mm-hmm. You can have everything. You can have the remote safety net, or there's a part-time job at the bar down the street in your family business, and do your thing and do your other thing. And you can, you have to really mold it and make it to whatever works for you. And that's going to be an individual thing. It's not like, society, social media, Instagram says like, you have to do it this way.
Right.
Or YouTube says you have to do it this way, but it's not. It's very individual based on your goals, your circumstances. And when you kind of tap into that, then it's okay, right? Then there is no failure. It's just you expressing and exploring and all of that.
No, I definitely agree with you. I definitely agree with you in a sense where the cookie cutter life is no more.
Yes.
That let me find that job for 20, 30 years, and then live off of my 401k and whatever investments I made. I think we're gonna go into like you said, it's gonna be I'm very excited to see what happens and what everyone does in this particular era in time, because even when I'm talking to my mom is in her late 60s, so I always tell her like, Ma, like that's not the way we do it now anymore. Like, oh, why did that guy sit down all day? Like he doesn't do anything all day. Like, Ma, Ma, trust me, the guy's making more money than you can ever imagine just sitting there.
The internet, right? This is the internet. Like it's like, I'm a millennial. I'm the first generation to grow up with the internet. There's no possible way our parents and grandparents could understand what it's like to grow up with a trillion options. Like, how could you pick just one thing when you have a million things? Like, how could you? Like that is unfathomable. So the younger generations, they're definitely going to kill it. It's going to be interesting to see how they do and when they run with the technology.
I definitely think so. If you had a chance to have dinner with a historical figure, who would it be?
Oh, that's a great question. And it's funny that I mentioned kind of the name earlier. I would want to talk to Da Vinci, right? Kind of like the first polymath, right? He was doing engineering. You were doing art. You were doing all this before technology.
Yeah.
Right. How did you do it? And what were you thinking? Were people thinking you were crazy? Because he's that modern Renaissance prototype that we're experiencing today. So maybe times were the exact same back then. It would be interesting to see his mind and see what he was going through.
Do you believe that human beings go through cycles of darkness, cycles of brightness, illumination? Just like the Dark Ages moved into the Renaissance, things like that. I think we might be in a position of another blow up of great things happening in individuals like you.
We do go through those cycles, and this is where, right? If people who are interested in that question, you could look towards sociology, you could look towards consciousness studies. There's a name, Rudolf Steiner, who kind of explored this idea of like epochs, and like now you're taking us as generations, right? There's time periods where, right, there were the Dark Ages. Now there's a bright age, right? We go through that as people in our individual lives, and then it obviously just expands out, but it's the same thing, right? I always say the seasons, right? Like right now in New York, it's wintertime. Wintertime is very indoor, it's dark. It's kind of depressing, but you're going through that motions as an individual, and then you're coming out spring, summertime, and generally you're more productive, generally you're happier. We go through that on every stage, right? As an individual, country, town, collective, and so on and so forth.
You kind of spoke on it a little bit. Southeast Asia. Why don't you go off of like the countries you visited, your experiences there?
Yeah, so this was nice, and this was really like the main reason I decided to quit my corporate job, was so I could travel. And my first big trip was actually to Japan. I went there with my friends, and it was just an amazing time. I've had a chance to go to some of the islands in Mexico. I did a big trip last year. It was a group travel trip. We did Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. Beautiful trip. I did Bali with my brother. Been to London and Europe a couple times. I did a big trip, just myself, Scandinavia this past year. So having the freedom to do these trips, right, was that's the motivation for me. Yeah, and I still have more travel to do, but for me, that's been the highlight. Like, oh, I get this free time, and with this free time, I'm going to travel. With this free time, I'm going to meet people and create and do these things.
That's really great because that is like a dream of many.
And this kind of ties back to the work that I do. The life coaching evolved into what I call lifestyle consulting. So regardless, you can call it whatever you want. But individuals as people, you can design your lifestyle. And this is something I wish would be taught in school. When you talk about the straight and narrow path, right, of like get the job, the 401k, the retirement, that linear path is gone. And now this is very unorganized. So a lot of people, like when they're trying to make that leap, like there's no structure. And that's really, that's the main thing that holds people back. And that's the main challenge, even as an entrepreneur and moving up the ladder in success, is you need a structure and you need to constantly restructure. You need to break this structure, you need to restructure, and you need to design your life and think that what that's going, where it's going to be. So where you are right now, it doesn't even have to be that, intense. It's just like taking a moment, maybe once a week. If you could do it at night, even better. And just kind of reflect like, okay, what did I do today? What did I do last week? What do I want to do? And how can I make more time for that? And just kind of asking yourself these questions and letting it ruminate. And over time, right, if you keep reflecting, you'll start to see the solutions.
And going back to the conscious life experience, was there ever a time where you were like, you know what, I might have made the wrong choice? Sometimes you're like, no, never. Never. Wow. No, so so for you, when you made that choice, that leap, you were like, you know what, I'm successful. I'm just gonna go get it.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously it's been tough. It's tough every day, but I could not. It's strange. It's like you can't, once you leave a certain place, you can't go back. So it's like, I could not stay in where I was before. Like I just couldn't. And now that I'm here, I have to keep moving.
Right.
And I think that's something people try to regret. They regret like, what if I made this or what if I did that? It's like in life, there's only one. You're always going forward. Like there is no regret. If you didn't do that, you wouldn't be here. And this is what I want to talk about too, with kind of like the dark and the light. Like there's a counterbalance to everything. It's not always positivity and construction. There's a destruction and a gestation period and an incubation period. There's patience that you just have to wait and do nothing. And then there's a time where you get to it. And as you build, and this is like an analogy I love to use, it's almost like the bigger the sun, like the brighter the light, the darker the shadow, right? So as you're getting big, you're like, people like think like it's going to get easier. Like, no, you're going to get more positive, or you're going to get so much more negative, but it's not really negative if you learn how to embrace that. Now you're going to have society and yourself judge yourself like this is immoral, this is bad, this is wrong. You got to get rid of that. And the more you can embrace it, the better. It's like, okay, let's say it's a dark period, right? You're in a dark period. Like I'm depressed. I can't move. I can't sleep, or I can't, get my idea out. So what am I going to do? I'm going to get that night mask. I'm going to put on music and I'm going to have the best sleep ever. It's like you have to fully dive into whatever it is. If you're having that dark time, like you go be like, put on your Batman. I'm the Dark Knight, right? You have to embrace whatever that is. And just as you embrace the positivity, and that's really the main thing that I think holds people back, is they judge something as right or wrong. I'm like, no, it's all one big process.
That's really amazing the way you put that, because I think that's a lot of people don't see it that way. A lot of people, it's that fear of loss. Like, if I make this step, what am I losing here? Yeah. And then that's when the regrets are stacking up. And then you're like, you know what? Let me just hang out here because that's too dangerous for me. That's a dream. Sure. Yeah, no, I've been through it. So what are the next big steps for the conscious life experience for you?
That is a great question. Definitely a lot of patience. I would say I had a lot of the base projects were built like 5 years. Like I've had my foundation. Now it's a matter of marketing and seeing how it connects. And marketing is such an interesting word too, because the way I treat my project is it's just an extension of me. So it's now, as it grows, it's just an expansion. So it's that to me is new, right? It's so uncertain. Like I don't know. I know what I want it to look like in the next, 10, 20 years, but like on the way to get there, I don't know how it's going to shape up in the day to day. So I know I have the foundation and just excited. So I can't give you a straight answer.
No, I totally get it. Now, talking about day to day, someone who is, I would assume is very highly functioning as yourself. What does the beginning of a day look like to the end of the day look like for someone like yourself?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I would say because I'm very free flow. I prefer unstructured, but I'm also like a seasonal person. So like
Hmm.
my day to day schedule is very different in the summer than it is in the winter. Versus like it's also different when I'm traveling. So for example, like in the winter, because it's so dark, I tend to be a night owl. I'll go to bed at like 2, 3 in the morning. But in that quiet period, I'm getting all my artwork done. I'm getting all this work done. I'll wake up noon, do my thing, interact with people, and then get back to it. Summertime, because the sun's out, I wake up with the sun. I go for running in the morning, and I do my thing. But generally, it's kind of a combination of like in the mornings, it's time for kind of like thinking and resetting and just taking care of like my physical stuff, like eating, showering, all that stuff. During the day, people are around, so I like to connect socially. And then on the night, it's like quiet for me. So that is where I'm super productive. So I try to keep a balance. And I think this is also important for people is on your road to creating your projects, you don't have to sacrifice. Like people always say, you have to sacrifice your friends, you have to sacrifice your family. Then what's the point? It's like, you don't have to sacrifice, you just have to balance. And that's the way it is, because if you sacrifice, right, then your life is just going to be that thing. They don't realize like if your life is kind of now, like I like all my family, I like my friends, I like my projects. So I'm going to find a way to fit it all in my day and my weekly schedule. And that's going to wait. It's going to grow that way. So I think that's most important, is finding your balance and whatever that means for you.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, I have succumbed to that, like, the identity of I gotta go hard or go home. Like, 4 hours of sleep, 2 hours of sleep, I gotta grind, you know. But I found that, like, you kind of have to, like, move in seasons, move in a rhythm, and you have to find your own rhythm. Because, yeah, you're right. Because, like, I understand having positive people around you, which is amazing, and taking out the negative people around you. And I mean, me
Mhm.
personally, I would sacrifice that if they're not giving any.
Yes, of course.
If we're not giving any value to each other, you're done to me. But
Yeah.
I do see now that it is fun to go out to dinner. It is fun to find that balance, because I think for me sometimes I feel that people who grind super hard, they're masking their not wanting to balance. To like, yeah, I don't got time, man. I gotta really bust my butt here, man. I got no time for you, whatever. But yeah, it sucks, but I kind of learned it the hard way, honestly, on my end.
Yeah. I mean,
I
I mean,
learned
we all do. We definitely all do, and it's something I deal with as well. Like, there's some days even now where it's like if I'm working on a project and there's like a specific thing in the project I'm focused on getting done and setting a deadline. Like I could work, 16 hours straight, nobody will see me, and then I'll
right.
come out, and then like I'll offset that with like, okay, if I'm traveling, I'm just off completely for a month. Like I'm not even looking at work.
Wow.
I'm just so you find that balance that works for you, and it's never going to look like anyone else's. I think that's the problem. It's like it needs to look this way, and that's where you
Yeah,
get stuck.
yeah, and I think that's how some people succumb to that pressures of what the society needs to put me in this particular box. Okay, you're a corporate person, so you do this, and you mow your lawn on the weekends, type thing. You're like one of the,
This is your template.
yeah, and I think that, like, I succumbed to that early on in my life. I'm like, okay, I gotta graduate, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, and then I don't know if being Asian played into it, because they had those dragon moms. Like my mom was a dragon mom, like, all day. My dad really, like, impressed us. But over time, I'm not gonna say I got lazy, but maybe to some people, like, I got more relaxed with, like, how I look at life and how I approach life, because sometimes, like, it that grind is not all worth it. Sometimes, it's not all worth it when you could have made a connection with somebody that could have
Mhm.
brought more value to you over time. Go ahead.
And this is what I was saying too. It's like everything's connected. Like whether I'm making an artwork on my phone right now, or whether I'm talking to you, or whether I'm at dinner, it's all one journey. Like it's all
Yeah.
work. Like it's all like your journey. Like it's all important. I think
Right.
people have to realize, like, it's not just like hard physical work, it's everything. Like
Mhm.
I could have a conversation with you right now and we're having mind-blowing, groundbreaking insights that I'm not going to get from looking at my phone. You know, it's like you needed to have that conversation. You needed to talk to that person. You needed to go to that place, and it's just staying open and really going with the flow. So this is what I was saying too. How I started is like you really have to just follow your intuition. Like if you feel like doing that thing, go do that thing. Like just go do that thing. Like there's always time to go back to whatever it was, and then you keep moving as opposed to punishing yourself, which so many of us do.
Yeah. No, I definitely understand.
So you can check out my website, theconsciouslifeexperience.com. You'll find my projects there. I'm also on Instagram at the John Mercado if you want to connect there. Yeah, just shoot me a message. That's what's up. Shout out Gilsar, your projects, your future. Hit you up for all of that stuff. Boxing fighters, I know that's a big one too. Managing finances in multiple areas, but especially athletes, especially boxing, as you were saying, in parts of the world. Lots of opportunity over there. But yeah, I mean, you have so many, even now, it's like you have so many ideas and opportunities. It's just going to take off. And one more thing too, I'll say, not only for you, but anyone looking for opportunities, there's so many tools out there. Take advantage of the AI tools, ChatGPT, AI generative art. It's very, very easy to shortcut that creative process. You don't need to know anything really. You just have to be resourceful and skillful, and then you could start from there. You have AI tools, you have social media, you have the internet, right? Make some profiles, use these tools, and just make things happen. Experiment, have fun, right? There's really no wrong way to do it. Like if you find one path is not working and it leads to another path, do that. Or if you find multiple working, you can keep track and keep progress of all of them. So just whatever you are, whatever you're into, just go do it. Go do it and see what happens.
That's great advice. So, Jonathan, I want to thank you for your time. I really do. I got a lot of insight and value from that. And I hope this will transition to more people reaching out to you. And I hope this is not the last time we speak.
Oh, for sure, Gilsar. It's a pleasure. We'll definitely do this again. We'll check in again. I'll check in a couple months to see where you're at.
Sure. And then if you ever come down to the Philippines, please feel free. You're more than welcome.